Her boss fired her and said you'll never work here, but when the mysterious new CEO arrived she fell to her knees, and left her shocked. The fluorescent lights buzzed faintly above as Emma stood in the cold, sterile office of her boss, Mr. Grayson. His desk was an imposing slab of polished mahogany, a fortress that separated him from the employees he so often dismissed with little more than a flick of his wrist. Today, it seemed, was Emma's turn to face the firing squad. She had spent 5 years climbing the corporate ladder at Crestwood Enterprises, pouring her heart into every project, staying late nights, and sacrificing weekends for the sake of success. Yet here she was, standing like a defendant awaiting judgment. Grayson leaned back in his leather chair, his expression unreadable but tinged with disdain. "Emma," he began, his voice smooth yet cutting, "you've been adequate." He paused, letting the word hang in the air like a dagger. "But adequate isn't enough around here. We need excellence, and frankly, you haven't delivered lately." Emma felt her stomach churn. Adequate? After all she'd done? She wanted to protest, to remind him of the campaign she'd spearheaded, the clients she'd brought on board, the accolades they'd received under her leadership. But before she could open her mouth, Grayson continued. "You're fired, effective immediately. And let me make one thing clear, you'll never work here again." His words hit her like a freight train, each syllable sinking deeper into her chest until it felt impossible to breathe. She stared at him, her vision blurring as tears threatened to spill over. For a moment, she considered pleading her case, explaining how personal struggles outside of work had affected her performance recently. But something stopped her. The look in his eyes told her it wouldn't matter. This wasn't about fairness. This was about power. As she walked out of the building, clutching the small box containing her belongings, Emma replayed the scene in her mind. How could things have gone so wrong? She had always prided herself on being resilient, adaptable, someone who could weather any storm. But now, standing alone on the sidewalk with the weight of failure pressing down on her shoulders, she wondered if she'd ever recover. Days turned into weeks, and the sting of rejection lingered. Despite sending out dozens of resumes and attending countless interviews, no one seemed interested in hiring her. It was as though Grayson's words had followed her everywhere, branding her as damaged goods. Friends tried to offer comfort, reminding her of her talents and encouraging her not to give up. But deep down, doubt crept in. Was she truly good enough? Then came the email that would change everything. It arrived late one evening when Emma was scrolling through job listings, feeling defeated once again. The subject line read, "Crestwood Enterprises welcomes its new CEO." At first, she almost deleted it without reading further. Why should she care what happened at the company that had cast her aside? But curiosity got the better of her, and she clicked. The message was brief, announcing the arrival of a new CEO set to take over operations within the week. No name was mentioned, only vague promises of innovation and transformation. Something about the tone struck Emma as odd, almost cryptic. Still, she shrugged it off and went to bed, trying not to dwell on the past. The following Monday morning, Emma found herself glued to her phone, unable to resist checking social media updates about Crestwood Enterprises. News outlets were abuzz with speculation about the mysterious new leader. Rumors swirled. Some claimed the individual was a tech prodigy from Silicon Valley, while others whispered about a foreign investor looking to shake up the industry. Whatever the truth, the anticipation was palpable. Later that day, Emma decided to visit a nearby cafe where she used to meet colleagues during lunch breaks. Sitting by the window, nursing a lukewarm latte, she watched people pass by, their lives seemingly unaffected by the chaos unfolding just blocks away. As she scrolled absent-mindedly through Instagram, a notification popped up, a live stream of the press conference introducing Crestwood's new CEO. Against her better judgment, Emma tapped play. The screen filled with images of reporters gathered in the sleek conference room she knew so well. Cameras flashed as a figure stepped onto the stage, silhouetted against the bright lights. For a moment, all Emma could see was the outline of a tall, commanding presence. Then the camera zoomed in, and her breath caught in her throat. Standing there, exuding confidence and authority, was none other than her. Emma froze, her fingers trembling as she dropped her phone onto the table. Memories flooded back, memories of laughter-filled evenings, whispered secrets, promises made under starlit skies. It couldn't be real. It had to be some cruel trick of fate. Yet there she was, unmistakable even after all these years. "Good afternoon," the woman said, her voice steady and melodic, carrying just a hint of familiarity. "My name is Isabella Hartley, and I am honored to join Crestwood Enterprises as its new chief executive officer." Isabella Hartley. The name echoed in Emma's ears like a ghost from another lifetime. They had grown up together, inseparable through childhood and adolescence. Their bond had been unbreakable, or so Emma had thought. Until the day Isabella vanished without explanation, leaving behind nothing but unanswered questions and a gaping hole in Emma's life. Now, staring at the screen, Emma realized two things simultaneously. First, Isabella hadn't simply disappeared. She had built an empire, rising to heights Emma could scarcely imagine. Second, whatever unresolved tension existed between them was about to come crashing back into her world. Without thinking, Emma grabbed her coat and rushed toward Crestwood Tower. Her legs carried her faster than she thought possible, fueled by adrenaline and disbelief. By the time she reached the lobby, crowds of employees and journalists milled about, eager to catch a glimpse of the enigmatic new CEO. Security guards attempted to maintain order, but the excitement was palpable. And then, amidst the commotion, Emma saw her. Isabella descended the grand staircase, elegant and poised, her sharp suit accentuating her commanding presence. Her dark hair cascaded over her shoulders, framing a face that was both familiar and hauntingly changed. Time had sculpted her features, adding maturity and gravitas, but those piercing green eyes remained the same. Their gazes locked across the crowded room, and for a split second, time seemed to stand still. Emma's knees buckled beneath her, and she collapsed to the floor, overwhelmed by emotions she couldn't begin to untangle. Shock, anger, longing. They collided inside her like waves crashing against a rocky shore. Isabella's expression faltered briefly, surprise flashing across her face before she quickly masked it with professionalism. She signaled to her assistant, who hurried forward to assist Emma. But Emma barely noticed. All she could focus on was the woman walking toward her, extending a hand. "Emma," Isabella said softly, her voice laced with emotion. "I didn't expect to see you here." Emma looked up, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Neither did I," she managed to choke out. "What are you doing here?" A shadow passed over Isabella's face, and for a moment, Emma thought she might walk away. Instead, she knelt beside her, gripping her hand tightly. "We have a lot to talk about," Isabella murmured. "But not here. Come with me." Before Emma could respond, Isabella rose to her feet, pulling Emma along with her. Together, they moved through the throng of people, heading toward the elevators. Whispers followed them, curious eyes tracking their every move. But Emma barely registered any of it. Her mind raced with questions, memories, and fears. When the elevator doors closed behind them, sealing them off from the outside world, Isabella turned to face Emma. "I know this must be overwhelming," she said gently. "Believe me, I never intended for it to happen this way." Emma shook her head, struggling to find words. "How could you?" she finally asked, her voice trembling. "All these years, I thought you were gone forever. And now you show up like this." Isabella sighed, running a hand through her hair. "There's so much I need to explain. So much I've kept hidden. But please, trust me when I say I never meant to hurt you." Emma searched her eyes, desperate for answers. "Why now? Why here?" Isabella hesitated, her jaw tightening slightly. "Because I'm here to fix what's broken," she replied cryptically. "Including us." The elevator dinged, signaling their arrival on the top floor. As the door slid open, revealing a luxurious penthouse suite, Emma felt a strange mix of dread and hope wash over her. Whatever lay ahead, she knew one thing for certain. Her life was about to change forever. Inside the opulent office, sunlight streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows, casting golden hues across the room. Isabella gestured for Emma to sit on a plush sofa, taking a seat opposite her. For several moments, neither spoke, the silence heavy with unspoken words. Finally, Isabella broke the quiet. "Do you remember the summer we spent at Lakeview Cottage?" she asked, her voice soft and nostalgic. Emma nodded, memories flooding back. That summer had been magical, a time of endless laughter, midnight swims, and dreams shared beneath the stars. It was also the last summer they'd spent together before Isabella disappeared. "I left because I had no choice," Isabella admitted, her gaze dropping to her hands. "My father, he was involved in something dangerous. Something I couldn't ignore. I thought leaving was the only way to protect everyone I cared about, including you." Emma's heart ached as pieces of the puzzle began falling into place. "You could have told me," she whispered, "instead of vanishing without a trace." "I know," Isabella replied, her voice thick with regret. "But I was scared. Scared of putting you in harm's way. Scared of losing you altogether. And then, when I finally had the chance to return, I convinced myself it was too late. Too much time had passed." Tears welled in Emma's eyes as she processed Isabella's confession. Part of her wanted to lash out, to demand answers for all the pain and confusion she'd endured. But another part understood the depth of sacrifice Isabella had made. "What does this mean for us now?" Emma asked cautiously, her voice barely audible. Isabella reached out, placing a gentle hand on Emma's knee. "It means I'm ready to fight for what we lost. For the friendship, and maybe more, that I abandoned. But it won't be easy. There are still forces at play, challenges we'll have to face together." Emma swallowed hard, torn between fear and hope. "And Crestwood? What role do I play in all of this?" A faint smile tugged at Isabella's lips. "That depends on you. I want to rebuild this company, not just as a business, but as a place where people matter. Where loyalty and integrity aren't just buzzwords. If you're willing, I'd like you by my side." The offer hung in the air, heavy with possibility. Emma knew accepting wouldn't erase the scars of the past or guarantee a smooth path forward. But as she looked into Isabella's eyes, she saw something she hadn't allowed herself to feel in years: trust. Slowly, tentatively, Emma nodded. "Okay," she said, her voice steadying. "Let's do this, together." Isabella's smile widened, relief washing over her features. "Thank you," she murmured, "for giving me another chance." As they sat there, the weight of the world pressing down yet somehow lighter than before, Emma realized that forgiveness wasn't a destination, it was a journey. One she was finally ready to embark upon, hand in hand with the person who had shaped her most profound memories. But even as they began to mend the fractures of their shared history, shadows loomed on the horizon. Forces beyond their control stirred, threatening to unravel the fragile threads of reconciliation. And somewhere in the depths of Crestwood Enterprises, secrets long buried awaited discovery. Secrets that would test the limits of their courage, their love, and their resolve. The days that followed were a whirlwind of activity. Isabella wasted no time implementing changes at Crestwood Enterprises, dismantling outdated systems and restructuring departments to foster innovation and inclusivity. Emma found herself swept up in the transformation, her role evolving from a sidelined former employee to a key advisor in Isabella's inner circle. It was exhilarating and terrifying. Despite their renewed connection, tension lingered between them. The wounds of the past weren't healed overnight, and while Isabella worked tirelessly to prove her sincerity, Emma struggled to fully trust again. Late nights in the office became a routine as they collaborated on projects, but there were moments when silence stretched uncomfortably between them, each lost in thoughts they dared not voice. One evening, after most employees had gone home, Emma sat alone in her newly assigned office, staring at the glowing screen of her laptop. She had been tasked with reviewing confidential files related to Crestwood's financial dealings over the past decade. What she uncovered left her reeling. Discrepancies, unexplained transfers, and names she recognized, names tied to powerful figures within the company. Her heart pounded as she scrolled through the documents. Something wasn't right. These weren't mere accounting errors. This was deliberate manipulation. And at the center of it all was one name that made her blood run cold: Grayson. Mr. Grayson, the same man who had fired her so callously, was implicated in transactions that suggested embezzlement and fraud. Emma felt sick. How could someone so deeply entrenched in corruption have risen to such prominence? More importantly, how far did his influence extend? Before she could process her discovery further, a soft knock interrupted her thoughts. Isabella stood in the doorway, her expression unreadable. "Still working?" she asked, stepping inside. Emma hesitated, unsure how much to reveal. Just going over some files, she said cautiously. There are inconsistencies. Isabella's brow furrowed. Inconsistencies. Nodding, Emma gestured for her to come closer. Look at this. She turned the laptop toward Isabella, highlighting the suspicious entries. As Isabella scanned the information, her face hardened. This is serious, Isabella murmured, her voice low and controlled. If these allegations are true, we're dealing with more than just incompetence. This could bring down the entire organization. Emma swallowed hard. What do we do? Isabella straightened, her resolve evident. We investigate. Quietly. If Grayson has allies, we can't afford to tip our hand too soon. But we also can't let this slide. Over the next few weeks, Emma and Isabella worked covertly, piecing together evidence while maintaining appearances during daylight hours. They enlisted the help of a trusted IT specialist named Marcus, who had been with Crestwood for years and harbored no love for Grayson. Together, they uncovered a web of deceit that reached higher than either of them had anticipated. But as they dug deeper, danger began to creep closer. Anonymous threats appeared, cryptic emails warning them to back off. Security cameras malfunctioned at critical times, and Emma noticed unfamiliar faces lingering in the hallways. The sense of being watched was suffocating. One night, as they pored over documents in Isabella's private office, Emma voiced her fears. This feels bigger than us, she admitted, rubbing her temples. What if we're out of our depth? Isabella placed a reassuring hand on hers. We're not backing down, she said firmly. Not now. Not when we've come this far. Her determination bolstered Emma's courage, but doubts still gnawed at her. Were they risking everything for nothing? Could they truly take on someone as entrenched as Grayson without losing themselves in the process? Their investigation took an unexpected turn when Marcus stumbled upon a hidden folder buried deep within the company server. Inside were recordings, audio files capturing conversations between Grayson and several high-ranking executives discussing illegal activities. Among them was a chilling exchange involving Isabella's father. Emma froze as she listened to the recording, her stomach twisting into knots. Isabella's father hadn't simply been involved in something dangerous, as she'd claimed, he had orchestrated it. And Grayson had been his accomplice. When Emma played the audio for Isabella, the color drained from her face. For the first time since returning to Crestwood, she looked vulnerable, shaken to her core. I didn't know, she whispered, her voice trembling. I swear I didn't know. Emma wanted to believe her, but the revelation shook the foundation of their fragile partnership. If Isabella's father was responsible for the corruption plaguing Crestwood, what did that mean for her leadership? Could she truly sever ties with her family's legacy, or would loyalty bind her to the very forces they sought to dismantle? As tensions mounted, Grayson grew increasingly erratic. He began calling emergency meetings, scrutinizing every decision Isabella made. His once polished demeanor cracked under the pressure, revealing a desperate man clinging to power. When he demanded access to restricted areas of the company database, Isabella refused, citing security protocols. It was a bold move, one that set the stage for confrontation. The showdown came sooner than expected. During a board meeting, Grayson launched a scathing attack against Isabella, accusing her of incompetence and jeopardizing the company's future. His words dripped with venom, designed to undermine her authority and rally support from other executives. But Isabella remained composed, her gaze steady as she addressed the room. Mr. Grayson seems intent on sowing discord, she said calmly. However, I assure you, my decisions are guided by integrity and transparency. Unlike some individuals present, I have nothing to hide. The implication hung heavy in the air. Grayson's face flushed crimson, and for a moment, it seemed he might explode. Instead, he stormed out, slamming the door behind him. After the meeting, Isabella pulled Emma aside. He's panicking, she said. Which means we're close. We need to act quickly before he destroys evidence, or worse. Emma nodded, though unease coiled in her chest. What's the plan? Isabella's eyes gleamed with resolve. We expose him. Publicly. Let the truth speak for itself. The strategy was risky, but they had no choice. With Marcus's help, they compiled the evidence into a comprehensive report, ensuring it was airtight and impossible to refute. Then, under cover of darkness, they leaked it to a reputable investigative journalist known for exposing corporate scandals. Within hours, the story broke. Headlines blared across news outlets, detailing Grayson's involvement in widespread corruption. Shareholders revolted, demanding accountability. Law enforcement launched an immediate investigation, raiding Crestwood's headquarters and seizing records. Grayson was arrested the following day, his career reduced to ashes. Yet even as justice unfolded, Emma couldn't shake the feeling that the battle wasn't over. The shadow of Isabella's father loomed large, a reminder that the roots of corruption ran deep. In the aftermath, Isabella called an emergency press conference. Standing before reporters, she acknowledged the scandal and vowed to rebuild Crestwood with ethics at its core. Her speech was impassioned, earning applause from employees and the public alike. But when the cameras stopped rolling and the crowd dispersed, Isabella turned to Emma, exhaustion etched into her features. "This isn't the end," she said quietly. "There's still so much work to do." Emma nodded, reaching for her hand. "Then we'll do it together." As they walked side by side through the halls of Crestwood, the weight of the past mingled with the promise of the future. They had faced betrayal, fear, and uncertainty, but they had also discovered strength in unity. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would meet them head-on, bound by a bond forged in fire. Yet unknown to both of them, a figure watched from the shadows, observing their every move. A sinister smile curled across their lips as they whispered, "The game is far from over." As the figure vanished into the night, Emma felt a chill run down her spine, though she couldn't explain why. Isabella tightened her grip on Emma's hand, sensing the unease. "We'll face whatever comes next," she said firmly. Together, they stepped onto the balcony overlooking the city, the lights below shimmering like stars. "We've already won the hardest battle," Emma murmured, leaning into Isabella. Isabella nodded, her voice soft but resolute. "And we'll keep fighting. For us, for Crestwood, for the truth." In that moment, surrounded by uncertainty yet anchored by each other, they found peace. The shadows of the past still lingered, but they no longer held power over them. Hand in hand, they vowed to build a future brighter than anything they'd ever known. And as dawn broke over the horizon, it carried with it the promise of renewal and redemption. For Emma and Isabella, the journey was just beginning.